National Fire Radio.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the National Fire Radio podcast, a podcast that is designed to talk about the job. I'm the luckiest guy alive. I get to interview the coolest people out there in the American Fire Service and talk about the job. Everything from guys riding backwards, officers, chiefs, up through companies, people, manufacturers, products, organizations, you name it. We're trying to capture the stories to promote the job and make the job better. So if you're returning and you're a regular listener, thank you. If you're new to the podcast, check it out and let us know what you think. Podcast at nationalfireradio.com is where you can find us. Send us an email. Let us know what you think about the show, people that you think might be a good guest, or anything else that you want to talk about. Send it over to podcast at nationalfireradio.com. We'd love to hear from you. And what we get to do is bring forth the word about the job. But in order to do that, we need the help of some sponsors. So do me a favor, hang tight, and listen to the words from a few of our sponsors. This episode's brought to you by Box Alarm Grills. When your apparatus arrives on scene, are you making the best showing? Looking to set your rig apart from everyone else? Want your engine, truck, or rescue to be easily identifiable? There is a solution. With large aluminum grill numbers and full-width rear mud flaps from Box Alarm Grills. Formed by Danny and a team of fellow firefighters, Box Alarm Grills gets it. They know what it means to show pride in your ride, delivering the quality construction and design that fire departments demand. That's why their grill numbers and mud flaps grab attention, enhance visibility, and make your fleet recognizable on scene while responding or just driving around town. Built in the USA by a family-owned business, Box Alarm Grills is quickly becoming the choice of fire companies, apparatus planners, and fire truck manufacturers with out-of-the-box or custom solutions. Check out functional, durable grill numbers and mud flaps from Box Alarm Grills today at boxalarmgrills.com and on Facebook and Instagram. And like Danny and his crew like to say, add pride to your ride. Taylor's Tins. Taylor and his team have been manufacturing aluminum helmet fronts since 2017 with over 200,000 shields in the market. Taylor's Tins is a leader in the American Fire Service helmet front space. Not only do they manufacture helmet fronts, but they do so much more. Locker tags, key chains, CO monitor charts, medical kit charts, pump charts, banquet awards, you name it, they do it. Go over to taylorstins.com and check out what they can offer you today. They've become a longtime sponsor and good friend of the National Fire Radio podcast, and because of that, they offer a promo code at checkout. So when you go to taylorstins.com, enter NFR Sent Me, that is NFR Sent Me, and you'll get 15% off your checked out order. It works on all stock items from taylorstins.com, including quick tins, license plates, locker tags, and much, much more. Exclusions do apply. This is a company that prides themselves on quality and customer service. From the inception, from your design to out the door, it's within 48 hours. Nobody else is doing that. They can't do that. 48 hours to get your shield out the door to you, to put it on your helmet, and get to the next job. Anyway, check out taylorstins.com. Again, that's taylorstins.com. Check out their latest offerings and use promo code NFR Sent Me. That's NFR Sent Me for 15% off on your checkout. And in the words of Taylor and his crew, stop burning up leather. Hey everyone, Jeremy, National Fire Radio. Welcome back to the National Fire Radio podcast. Today is going to be a fun episode. I met this fella at the Joey D conference out in Long Island this past November. The guy is a West Coast. This is the left coast. This is so opposite and different from what we know, yet tactically very similar to the East Coast, and we're going to dive in on that. This is Steve McClain out of Sacramento, California, 20 years in the fire service, 8 years with the city of Sacramento. Steve, thanks for joining me, brother.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this, man. I mean, let's unpack this a little bit. I met you at Joey D, and I met you through a very good mutual friend of both of ours, Bobby Eckert. So you're part of the Eckert Fire Tactics team. We met, and Bobby always referred to you as West Coast Steve. So
Yeah.
you happened to be out for that weekend, and it was nice to meet you. And you and I literally dove right in and started talking about truck companies. We talked about tower ladders, which I want to bring up too. We didn't talk about that in the pre-interview here, but I want to talk about the tower ladder culture because I asked you why California doesn't really use a lot of tower ladders, so I want to hit on that. But brother, thank you for joining me today, man. I'm excited to kind of hear about your story and get to know you a little bit better.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Let's see, started in the fire service in 2003 with a small fire department in Northern California. Did 11 years there, and then tried to get into a little bigger, a little faster paced organization. Came on with Sacramento in 14, and the rest is history.
Were you looking for more?
Yeah, man. I mean, when I came into the job, it's kind of funny how I came into the job. I don't have any family or anything like that. I just I was actually a really rough kid, man. I wasn't doing good things. And so my family owns a restaurant, and a bunch of the drill instructors from the college academy that's close to it would come in for lunch. And my mom was talking to them, and she said, "Hey, tell me about the fire service. I got this son. He's a loser, and I'd like to figure out something for him to do." And so one of the battalion chiefs at the local fire department goes, "Hey man, send him to the firehouse for 24 hours. We'll straighten him out." And so did a little 24-hour ride along with the Yuba City Fire Department, and the rest is history, man. I was hooked.
No
And,
kidding.
Yep, joined the fire academy right after that. Went through it, got on as a paid call guy, then got on as a seasonal. Did a couple years with CDF in between my time on my other department, and then full time, and then to Sacramento, man. And but the whole time I was kind of going through this thing, I always knew I wanted to be in a busy urban organization, and so Sac was a really good spot for that.
Yeah, and Sacramento's a fire town, right? I mean, it's a large enough city with multiple companies, which allows for more opportunity, I should say.
Yeah, I mean, we got it's about 600,000 people in Sacramento in the city, residents or whatever, and it swells to like 1 million during the day. And then we got 24 houses, 24 engines, 9 trucks, a rescue. We do run a fire department ambulance, so we have 18 ambulances, and we got about 650 guys, and we staff about 200 per day on duty. So
it's a good sized department, plenty of opportunity. You got a little bit of everything too, no?
Yeah. So we got a USAR team, rescue, hazmat, boat, wildland, training. I mean, anything you want to get into. SAC's kind of involved with it. It's the oldest fire department west of the Mississippi River, so that's kind of a cool little stat for you there.
Yeah, that is cool.
Yeah, established in 1850. So yeah, it's been around a long time. We take a lot of pride, and we do a fair amount of fire duty, and we pride ourselves in doing a good job on that. So.
Yeah. So talk to me when you came over, right? I mean, 8 years ago you came over. You had some background behind you with a smaller department, and when you came over, was the urban department that you were yawning for or looking for? Did it deliver? Did it give you what you were looking for?
Yeah. So like what I noticed first was in our academy, we have just a brutal fire academy, really well known in the region and in the state of just being absolutely brutal. And there's a lot of good reasons for that. But one thing I'll tell you about it is the thing I remember the most is how specific the instructors were on every single technique, how they had broken it down to the finest minute detail.
Yeah.
And you could tell because it was experience-based street stuff. It wasn't like somebody read it from a book or took a class from somebody. Yeah.
Right.
Like they were telling you how to do it because they had done it in the street. And I just remember being really kind of enamored by that because I'd never been taught like that before. And so when these guys spoke, you knew that they were coming with some actual experience, not just something that they heard or read or whatever,
Yeah. And I guess getting on too in Sacramento with a department of that size, it gives you an opportunity to have a nice probie class, I would assume then. So you probably came on with a class.
Yeah. Where was I think we started with like 26 and we graduated 19. and I think there's probably 15 of us left in my class. But when I was a drill instructor, the first class I taught was 48, and the second class I taught was 53. So
Wow.
we
Okay.
we normally range between 60 and 25 normally, I would say.
Oh, okay. All right. So it varies. Yeah. That's pretty wild. So I want to get to the drill instructor part, but I want to come up through your career a little bit first before we get there. So you get in, you go through the academy, you're enamored by the way they're teaching, the teaching style. You recognize, because you have experience, that this is experience-based teaching, right? The academy, and that this city provided the experience to those drill instructors to set you on the right path. So outside of the academy, where did you end up? Did you end up in a busy house?
Yeah. So essentially we graduated the fire academy, and then they held us over for 2 weeks to do like a rescue systems class and a LARO class. So you were out of the academy, but still assigned into the training division. And during my time in that, we had a major incident in our department. We had a near miss. We had a firefighter go through a floor into a basement and it gets severely burned. And I remember during that time, coming from my old department, nobody had ever been seriously injured. Guys had bumps and bruises or whatever, but like, and I remember thinking immediately, like, even before I hit the streets, like, wow, this is real. Like,
Yeah.
this is no joke. And so my first house was the house that guy was the same engine.
Oh,
So
okay.
that was,
Gotcha.
yeah. So my first rotation, they took me, because it was a week later, they took me over to that house. They explained what happened, because essentially the crew was there. And, I just remember thinking, oh, we got to take this seriously. So yeah, I went to a pretty good engine right out of recruit school, went to engine 6, which is a pretty well-known engine in my fire department. And then went to a medic, but who cares about that? And so did engine 6, engine 15, and truck 17 on probation. We do 3 different station tours at 4 months at a time.
Right. So you rotate through, and then from there, do you get the pick, or how does that work?
So this is going to sound real convoluted, but
it always is.
Yeah,
It's never easy, man.
No. So when you get done with probation, you become what they call a detail firefighter. So essentially you fill vacancies.
Right.
But a station can do what they call prefer you. So it essentially means that they have a vacancy and that they want you to stay there. You're not assigned to that firehouse, but you're just, if there's an opening, you go to that opening.
Yeah.
So I finished my probation at truck 17, and me and the crew just really hit it off there, and I had a great time. And so when I got on probation, they preferred me into 17s. And so I did the first year off probation, essentially detailing onto the truck, which was an amazing experience. And then when that spot ended up getting filled, I went over and detailed to the engine for a while.
Okay.
And then ended up getting assigned to the engine at 3 years, which is a very short time for my department. And normally it used to take 5, 6, 7, 8 years to get assigned.
Oh, is that right? Wow.
Yeah. And I got it with 3. And then I did 2 years assigned to engine 17. And then I slid across the floor to truck 17.
Got it.
Yeah.
What'd you enjoy more? What do you enjoy more?
Well, okay. So the full story is I left truck 17 last February and went to an engine in the South area in Battalion 2 at engine 56. And I love them both. I will say the best seat in the house is the nozzle seat. There's just nothing that compares to a nozzle fireman. But the nice thing about the truck is it doesn't really matter where you land in the order. You're always getting work.
Yes.
So if you're on an engine and you're second due and it's a bread and butter fire, you're going to sit on the yard with a hose and then that you're going to pack it up and get out of there. Where you could land third in a truck and you're still going to go, do what you got to do, and you're still going to be in there, getting work. So I would say that's the difference is, if you're first on scene every time, the engine's the spot. But if you're not, the truck's pretty good too. So
yeah, no, I get that. It makes sense. And especially from your culture too, because what I find really interesting is, I don't want to do this East Coast, West Coast thing, but there are some differences within the styles of firefighting within the United States, obviously. And in East Coast and West Coast sometimes have some style differences in just how they operate, even everything from how they look, how they perform, how they work the fire ground, and so on. But you guys, there's an East Coast influence, right? You mentioned about Sacramento.
Yeah, so there's some books out there that really talk about when these fire departments, the first fire departments on the West Coast were founded. They would actually bring over East Coast firefighters to essentially found these fire departments and then teach them how to fight fires. So the Northern California region was the first region founded in California because of the gold rush era.
Yeah.
And so when Sacramento and San Francisco and Stockton and fire departments like that were founded, they were essentially brought up by members from, fire departments of, Philadelphia, New York, and actually their original uniforms will mimic some of those same uniforms that they wore back east. It's funny because when we talk tactics, when I'm working for Bobby, I think the biggest difference is just the building construction.
Yeah.
The building construction is what's going to really dictate your tactics. So I think if you were to look at like a San Francisco fire department, they're going to be way more close to San Francisco or a New York style because that's a vertical city.
Right. Where
in Sacramento, we got a little more urban sprawl. So, we just operate a little differently.
Yeah. And the way you put it before to me too was that, it's more common to throw a 14-foot roof to get to the roof than to use the aerial ladder or device off the truck itself.
Yeah, I mean, especially here in the valley, because we do a lot of one and two story. We don't have snow here, so the pitches are 412, 612, stuff like that. So, I mean, it's just a different it's a different environment, and so we operate in a fashion that we feel is successful for us.
Well, it makes sense,
so
sure.
Yeah, I mean, we could essentially get off the ladder, walk up the roof, take the chainsaw and cut the hole in a minute. We're not throwing a roof ladder and then, having to stick a halligan into the roof for a step or anything like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, so that goes then hand in hand with the conversation of riding assignments. And that's something you and I were talking about. And I wanted to dive down that hole a little bit because you guys have a pretty structured layout and how you operate from the engine and the truck and its positions. And the truck is pretty unique in regards to the three different categories you have and how you guys operate. Maybe you could dive down that hole a little bit with me and educate me about how you guys do that in Sacramento.
Yeah, so we kind of really rely on our riding positions, and that's something that we drill on quite a bit, and everybody kind of knows what the plan is long before they even get on the truck. So when they arrive, the captain calls the play, and then everybody kind of goes about what they need to be doing. So we ride 4 on the truck and 4 on the engine, and essentially the seats go as such as the captain, and then the fireman behind him is what we call the tools fireman, and then the AO, which is the driver, apparatus operator, and then the guy behind him is the saw fireman. So depending on the play that the captain calls, and he has 3 options. So he either says all in, which means all 4 of the firefighters are going in for primary search. He says all out, which means all 4 are going to the roof for ventilation. Or he could say split, which is 2 up to the roof and 2 interior. And depending on what they see and what they have on arrival is going to depend on what that captain calls at that time. But when you get off the rig, after the captain's kind of set his play, you really have an understanding of what tools you need to grab and what your assignment's going to be.
Yeah, and the captain's the captain makes that decision himself. I mean, he's not told coming in as to how he's going to perform. So he's allowed to make that audible call on arrival, depending upon construction and fire progress and so on.
Yeah, absolutely. So like, let's say, we got a 2-story residential with fire on the first floor. He's probably going to go all in on that fire because we're not going to ventilate, on the top side for a fire on the first floor.
Right.
So he gets to make that call when he arrives. Our chiefs have a lot of confidence in our truck captains and our engine captains to make those calls. They do a pretty good job of just staying off the radio and just, monitoring where guys are and the times and stuff like that. So, so they make that call and they decide, and if we have the opportunity, we're always going inside for search. And I would say that's something very different in Northern California than what I know of Southern California. My friends that work down there is like, their trucks are more exterior. They do a lot of outside work, a lot of vent, a lot of softening the building, utility, stuff like that, where our trucks are more interior oriented. They want to get in, they want to make the primary search and do what they can.
Yeah. No, I get that, and I've seen that, But so I like the positions, and I like that the game plan, right? Because what that does then is what? It sets everything in motion, and everybody knows where they need to be and when they need to be there, right? And so I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah. So like, we always say like we're like pit bulls on leashes, and as soon as that parking brake, it's like you're letting us off the leash, and so as soon as the parking brake, the doors fly open and everybody's moving with a purpose. The engines are obviously a little faster than the ladders, so the ladders normally are arriving second, and so they'll normally have the backup fireman from the engine up trying to force the door. Well, it's kind of like who can get that door first. So
right.
the tools fireman's running up there, and it's pretty good. Most guys understand once the truck arrives on scene, the engine guys will kind of go back to doing engine things, and the truck will take over that position. And if everybody just accomplishes their job, then every job gets accomplished, and as long as you're not trying to overextend, things get done.
So what's the order then? What's it, 4 and 2 with a rescue for a confirmed structural fire for residential, or what do you get on the initial?
Yeah, so we get 4 and 2 chiefs and a medic. We don't put the rescue operates as a truck company, so it is a rescue company. It's a heavy rescue type heavy rescue, but when they don't get put on every box. And they just when they get a box, they just operate as a truck company.
So they work within their area. Then they're not going outside of their first, second, third, fourth, through whatever area. They're not citywide, if you will. Okay.
No, they're not unless it's special call for them. And the funny thing about Sacramento is it's 91 square miles. It's
wow.
So with only one rescue, like it was proposed to those guys, and I guess at one time they kind of did that. And it was like, they were spinning a lot of U-turns, and so they were like, "This is bullshit." Excuse my language.
No, man, that's a long tour. I mean, if you're turning out for everything and getting returned, I mean, I get that.
Yeah, I mean, we probably get, on an average, we probably get 5 working fire tones a day, so I mean that's a lot of turning out for those guys to get turned around, and even on a bread and butter house fire, they're not going to get used, so it would just be turning around for them. So.
And I have to think too, knowing that area of California, I mean I don't know it well, but I've been to Sacramento, I've been north of San Francisco and all that. Like I kind of understand the terrain and so on, but it's pretty diverse, right? I mean, you guys have everything from an urban setting to rural areas, no?
Yeah, so in the city of Sacramento, it's for the most part it's urban.
Okay.
So the downtown, high rises,
right.
Taxpayers, Victorians, what we call high water bungalow, which is essentially like a single story Vic. And then when you get out further, it's just a little more residential. But the thing about California that makes it kind of funny is it's sidewalks, then right off the sidewalk is a wrought iron or chain link gate, and then normally they'll have a wrought iron fence on the porch, and then they'll have a security door, and then the actual house door.
Yeah.
So there's 3 or 4 forcible entry issues before you can make it to the front door. So like a lot of our stretches are kind of determined by that aspect of what we deal with, so where I work,
I was going to say, but the engine's doing some of that work for you, right? Because the engine's getting there and stretching probably before the truck's arriving, right? For the most part. So so the engine takes care of their own entry?
Well, I mean, as much as they can,
right.
A lot of these places will have case hardened locks and stuff like that. So it's a circ saw job if they get there, but I mean, as an engine guy, formerly a truck guy, I try to get through everything I can long before the truck ever arrives. I mean, we popped the door with a set of irons the other day and canceled the truck on an extrication. So,
Outstanding. There you go. Making friends, Steve. Making friends.
Always.
That's fantastic. Well, that's fun, man, because it gives you a lot of opportunity then, right? And is that what then pushed you into the training aspect of it? I mean, you mentioned being a drill sergeant, drill instructor. You said that your days in the academy when you were coming up through the system in Sacramento were really influential to you in seeing how those guys were teaching from experience, from an experience point of view. I mean, is that what pushes you to do better? Because like I met you through Bobby, which is a training company on the East Coast, and yet you are a part of their cadre. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Anderson Rescue Solutions. Anderson Rescue Solutions was founded in 2016 by former Philadelphia firefighter Tim Anderson. As an urban firefighter and rescue specialist, Tim found that the equipment available to him lacked the usability and practicality in complex, high-stress environments that rescuers often found themselves in. To combat this, he developed products based on his own experiences in the field, creating innovative, efficient gear designed to thrive in reality. The multi-loop rescue strap is a perfect example of one of these products. Made in America, this patented tool is used for rapidly harnessing firefighters or civilians in the worst conditions. Every feature is fine-tuned to meet the needs of rescuers battling low visibility, low dexterity, and high stress. The multi-loop rescue strap has been used in numerous real-world rescues for both firefighters and civilians all across the country, and it is being increasingly adopted by fire, rescue, and tactical agencies as standard issue equipment. I carry one. I have carried one for many years. It is the most versatile strap out there. Check it out, the multi-loop rescue strap by Anderson Rescue Solutions. Tim Anderson, the owner and proprietor of Anderson Rescue Solutions, has become a dear friend. In fact, he's even been on the podcast several episodes ago. Dropped incredible information. He's super passionate about the fire service, about special operations, and he has built an incredible company, an incredible product. So because of our great relationship with Tim and Anderson Rescue Solutions, if you go to andersonrescue.com, you'll get 10% off if you use the promo code NFR2023. That's NFR2023 at checkout on andersonrescue.com. You'll get 10% off your order. And do me a favor, go over to their social media and check out Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube for weekly news, product info, and other content in regards to Anderson Rescue Solutions. This episode's brought to you by Flame Decon. Developed specifically for firefighter decon, Flame shampoo, body wash, and soaps reduce your risk of getting occupational cancer. Live fire testing shows that carcinogens on your skin after a fire are removed and undetectable after using Flame. Flame Decon has made a product that not only does its job and does it well, but that you'll enjoy using. They smell amazing. They make your skin and hair feel great. I will be an absolute witness to that. I have used the product. Tara and I have known each other for quite some time. She has sent us product. We have used it, and it does take that smell of soot and smoke off of you immediately following a shower. It makes a difference. You can find Flame Decon products at flamedecon.com and use promo code NFR for 15% off your first order. That's promo code NFR for 15% off your first order at flamedecon.com. And for departments that are interested in departmental orders, more than one or two pieces of product, you can reach out to Tara directly at tara@flamedecon.com. She's happy to entertain any inquiries that you have. And this made me think departments need to protect their own, and protecting our own is also after the fire. Chiefs, purchasing managers, look into Flame Decon as a way of protecting our firefighters in and out of the firehouse. So check out Flame Decon at flamedecon.com. Use promo code NFR for 15% off your first order. So I'm just curious, like, where does your love for training come from?
Oh man, that's a good question. I had a fire very early in my career that was I would say a big change for me. I don't even know what you would call it, a life-changing fire, I guess. There was some bad things that happened, and unfortunately, in my personal opinion, a civilian paid the price for it.
Yeah.
And I remember from that day, I was like, I'm never not going to know kind of what I need to know to get the job done. And so when I went through Sax Academy, I just remember, like, I remember as soon as I left there, I was like, I want to be a drill instructor, because my drill instructors made me want to be a better fireman. They made me really want to be the best I could be, and get as much knowledge as I could. And so when I left there, I wanted to, have that same kind of effect on the future of this organization. And our drill instructors used to have this saying on the back of their hats, and it said "True Believers." And I just remember thinking, like, that's pretty badass, man. These guys really believe in what they're doing, and trying to carry on the traditions of this organization. And so I applied, because you have to apply, you have to interview, it's a whole thing. And I got the spot, and I got the spot with right at 5 years, which they normally like a little more time than that. But I had been teaching at the college level, and kind of been involved with our fire setting program and stuff like that. So they knew who I was, and they knew I was engaged. So
Sure.
they gave me an opportunity, and I got to teach for class 19-1 and 19-2, and it's a 24-week academy. And like I said, it's brutal. We're hard on our recruits, but it's for a good reason. We push them to show them what they have and what they actually can do out there when it's time to really get going. So
I think that's so important to push our people, right? I mean, they have to understand that what they think is their limit, they can go beyond that, and it takes a talented staff and people and mentorship in a good, safe environment that allows for people to excel.
It's kind of cool, because I think each academy staff is kind of just growing off the previous academy staff. This program has been in place for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
And the nice part about it is most of our really high up staff chiefs came through the training division, so they understand what the process is of this this academy. They understand the what this kind of product this puts out. So when we're working these recruits really hard, and if they get some complaints or something, they understand that it's for the betterment of the organization for the next 30 years, that these people understand that that you have more to give inside, even when you think you don't have more to give.
I get it.
and
I get
and
it.
so one of the crazy things is, we did an after action review on that fire I was talking about, when that member fell through the floor
Right.
and got burned.
Mm-hmm.
And when they interviewed him, one of the things he talked about was he just remembers his time in the academy, and then, like, telling him, hey, one more thing, one more thing. And that's what kept him going, to be able to hook himself onto an attic ladder and then pull him out of the basement.
What do you mean, one more thing? One more thing. What do you mean by that? Explain that.
So one of the things that we kind of do in the academy is, we'll give them a workout, or we'll give them something to do. And then when they think they're done, we always kind of give them, hey, one more thing.
Got it.
One last evolution. So, hey, we're going to, one of the big kind of marquee workouts we do is that we go to Sac State College, and we hike their stadium up and down all the way around. It's a big horseshoe. And then when we're done with that horseshoe, we get to the end, everybody's kind of cheering and happy, and all, jovial about it, because, you just worked your butt off. And then we go, all right, we're going back. And we hike the whole thing back around.
Jeez.
And, it's just one of those things where you got to know that when it's getting hard, you got more inside. So.
Yeah, well, we can't have quitters, man. I mean, we can't have people on the street that are doing this job deciding that they just can't do it. Can't do it.
And it's about, it's about doing the right thing all the time, which 100%. Is one of my favorite quotes is a Vince Lombardi quote. It's, fatigue makes cowards of us all. And, when we work 48-hour tours, and when you're on your 40th hour and you've been up for all 40 of them, and you got a patient who's giving you some lip, and you have to keep your composure. You got to do the right thing. And, I hate to talk EMS, but that's, or you go to a fire and you don't want to pull that wall apart because you're tired, but you got to pull that wall apart to make sure there's no extension into it. You know what I mean? So
doing the right thing is doing the right thing. And it's
yes, sir.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, Steve. So where did Then training itself. I mean, you obviously enjoy it. You enjoy the ability to give back and to push and promote your people. You pursue it yourself. So I'm assuming outside of the job, you were looking for alternatives as well to better yourself.
Yeah. So that's exactly how I met Bobby.
So
So
explain that. Yeah.
Bobby and Greco came out to California for a force entry class. And a good buddy of mine, Matty Lou, he'd been following Bobby for a long time on Instagram, and I really didn't know who he was. He goes, "Hey man, we got to go to this guy's force entry class. He's, check his Instagram page out." And, because there's been, being in the fire service for 20 years, I've seen some changes, where it was, when I first came on the job, it was, the guy you wanted to be like was the tough guy, the guy who could could just get his ass kicked the hardest and keep going.
Right.
And then it went to, hey, us first. I remember hearing that, firefighter safety first. Like if we're not safe, then we can't save other people. And I remember thinking that doesn't make a lot of sense to me, like we're here for them. And then, and then I, started reading Bobby's, stuff, and, he was more aligned with what I was into, aggressive fire tactics and being smart and educated. So, so we go to this force entry class and we're kind of going through it. And then after Bobby did a little lecture thing, and then after, of course, we have some cold beverages and shoot the shit.
Yeah.
And so I was sitting down with Bobby and his lovely wife, Bren, and for like 3 hours, we just chatted it up, talked fire tactics, talked training, talked everything, just drinking beers, laughing, having a good time, kind of giving our philosophy on the fire service. And he just said, "Hey man, you want a job?"
Nice.
And I go, "I got to talk to my wife. I'm involved in a lot of things, and I got 2 small kids right now." And so I came home, and he goes, "Well, run it by your wife and get back to me." And I said, "Okay." And so I came home and I asked my lovely wife, and couldn't do any of this without her. And Jessica said, "You know what? That's a great opportunity. You should do that." So I called Bobby and said, "Hey man, I'm in." And he goes, "All right, come on out to Bergenfield." And Bergenfield, New Jersey was the first taking it to the streets I did.
Yeah.
And, it was a blast.
What does that do for you, man? I mean, I know that group really well. I've done a lot of events with them, and I've gotten to know many of them pretty well and so on. What does that do for you when you can get away and literally fly across the country, right? The dedication that you put in to do this is pretty hardcore, right? Because this isn't around the corner. So you're flying across the country, you're lugging all your crap with you, and then you come into town, and then you get to hang with great guys that love firefighting. What does that do for you?
Well, so I got a buddy that is a mentor of mine, Eric Hankins. I'm sure you probably know who he is.
I was going to ask you when you said Uba City, I was like, oh man, I had no idea you guys were friends. I literally, oh man, I love Eric. Anyway, he's gonna. Yep, go ahead. Oh, I'm so happy right now.
So Eric has been traveling and teaching for a long time, and so we run around pretty tight, and so I knew what he did, and I always kind of had an interest and kind of going that route. But, I don't know. I just maybe thought it wasn't for me. I kind of given up on it. And so when I got the call to go out to Bergenfield, I was super excited to do that and kind of check that whole thing out. And so the first person I called was Eric, and I go, "Hey man, tell me about Eckert Fire Tactics, because I don't know a lot about him." And he goes, "Oh, Bobby's good, man. He's got a lot of people. He's doing a lot of good things. And I think you're going to fit in well." And so I fly out, and the only guy I know is Bobby and Greco. I mean, so like, and there's a whole cast of characters in this Eckert Fire Tactics.
Sure is.
So I'm not at Bergenfield for 5 minutes before Jay Urban starts breaking my shoes about being from California, and I'll tell you, the first guy who was, just amazing was Jack Dewan.
Yep.
I mean, the nicest guy I think I've ever met, just a true gentleman, came up, "Hey man, help me do this, help me do that." And then I was just amazed on what Bobby could do with pallets and OSB and, plastic paper and all sorts of stuff like that. I was amazed. And he's telling me this plan, and I'm like, looking at this training facility going, how are you going to put this thing together? And then it came together. And so we go out and I'm meeting all the guys, and I'm just listening to the pedigrees of some of these guys. And I'm like, wow, I'm really overshadowed here. And so we're doing some training, and they put me on the force entry prop. And so I'm teaching right next to Paul Hogzema, who works for the FDNY.
Yep.
And so at the time he hadn't been promoted yet, so he was still working on the rescue. So we're talking, and I kind of make a joke to the students. I go, hey, I'm Steve. I'm from Sac City, Truck 17. This is Paul. He works in some place, I don't know, on some rescue somewhere. Don't worry about it, And I kind of just made a joke of it. And he, Paul kind of grabbed me and he goes, hey, man. He goes, doors force the same way in Sacramento as they do in New York. He goes, don't take away from your experience like that. And I just remember at that moment thinking, you know what, I can hang with these guys. I can run with them. And from then on out, man, it's been gangbusters. It's been great.
That sums it up, man. I think whether it's Bobby's group or any of these other training groups, I think when you find people that are so passionate about paying it forward and promoting the job and teaching our next generation or reinforcing the generation that's here now, like, you guys are so special. I think that the guys that put in all this time and energy in any of these training groups that are legit and are there for the right reasons, I think you guys are the reason why I think the fire service is as good, if not better, than it's been. I really do. I believe that. And it's on the back of guys that are working very hard to help offset mediocrity within the fire service. You guys are offering an alternative to what many have come to know as, proficiency, checkbox, and just, this is how we operate and we don't do anything above and beyond, and it's us first, them second, that type of mentality. And I really believe that on the blood, sweat, and tears of you guys that are out there every single day, all these different training companies and what you guys do, you guys are the reason why the job is well and good. I really believe that.
I agree. I mean, and it's funny because there's a guy on my job, or retired on my job, and his name's Tim Adams, and he's probably one of my biggest mentors. He did 30 years in the engine, and he never went to the truck, he was a through and through engine guy. And he took something that could be made so simple and broke it down to the most minute detail to make it the best he could make it. And huge part of the writing assignments on the engine, and a big author in our engine company manual. And he would run around with guys like Andy Fredericks and Dave McGrail. And if you even read the book of Andy,
Yeah.
he's in the first section, that Dave McGrail, they talk about Tim Adams. And I think that a lot of us that kind of came up through this thing are just kind of, who've had the opportunity to meet these guys and learn from some of these guys. We're just trying to really keep the things going that they started, 30 years ago. You know what I mean?
You don't have to.
No. You're right. We don't.
So
we don't,
what?
but
So what drives you then? Like, do you feel? Because I ask myself this question sometimes too. I don't have to be doing what I'm doing right now, right? What fuels me? What fuels West Coast Steve? Like, what fuels you to want to do more, be more, and offer more?
That's a really good question. I don't think I've ever really dove that far into. I mean, one, I just love the camaraderie of the job. I love that we can affect people's life. And to be honest with you, I like the challenge of the fire service.
Love it.
And then I like being able to kind of share my knowledge to other people's who I'm sure are going to go through the same hard knocks that I went through, but at least might have a little bit better of a understanding of it beforehand. I one thing about the fire service, coming in at 18 years old, like I did, was I came into a job with a bunch of grown ass men, and I had never been around anything like that before. So I took a lot of beatings early on in my career, and I remember getting treated pretty shitty. And so now as a teacher, I look at some of these guys who are, might be a little bit of smart alecks and have attitudes and stuff like that. And I kind of cling to them a little bit, because I'm like, I was that guy. And there was a lot of people who said I couldn't do it or said I wouldn't make it. And, I had a lot to, had a little chip on my shoulder to kind of prove them wrong. And so like, I like those younger guys that are a little full of themselves and a little mouthy and aggressive, because I think a little bit now we're seeing a little less of that. We're seeing guys that just wanted, 8 to 8 and out the gate kind of guys. And so if you kind of really show those younger guys who are aggressive and a little chippy and stuff like that, that they're part of something bigger, and what they do really matters, and you give them some purpose, they'll really grasp onto this thing and keep it running.
Well, and that makes such sense to me, because we started this conversation 40 minutes ago about you telling me how your mom made you go to Yuba City for a 24-hour tour because you were headed down the wrong path.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that there's such a, the reason why I pushed you on that question a little bit was I was curious if it does stem back to what was done for you through your experiences early on. But, you saying that you came up early through the system and you didn't have some of the best experiences, that is so freaking common, man. There are so many people, whether it's career or volunteer, that don't have a good experience early on, and it sets the trajectory of their career. And I mean, go ahead.
I'll tell you, my first fire chief, his name's Steve Hart. He came from Southern California departments to us, my first department. And he told me something that I've always kept with me. And it was, take everything that you like that people have done for you and do that for everybody else. And take everything that you didn't like that people did to you and never do that to anybody else.
Yeah.
And I've just kept that with me through my time. And, and being a little bit older now, seeing younger guys come on the job, I understand why those guys treated me the way that they did. I'm not like mad about it that they did it, because I was a punk ass kid.
I get it.
You know what I mean? But what I will say is that, when I get those guys in my firehouse, I really try to focus that punk ass energy into something positive, where these guys, some of them just kind of wanted to write me off, so
listen, man,
I would say that's the change.
Yeah, I mean, some of our best firefighters are the hardest hitting dudes outside of the firehouse too. I mean, these are guys that go hard, and so harness that and make them promote the job, make them love the job and understand the job and how they do fit in. I think the one thing we can't do, and we have to be very careful of, is sometimes we dismiss people basically on how they act or who they are when they come in the door. And I had one of my best friends to this day. When he walked through the doors of the fire department, he had such a bad reputation from people that said, "You don't want this guy." And I said, "Well, maybe he needs us." I said, maybe you don't want to spend the time on him, but I said, let me make my own opinion. I brought this kid in, and we mentored him, and he needed the structure of the fire department to figure out where he needed to be in life. And to this day, this guy's crushing life. He needed the firehouse. It wasn't so much that I needed them. He needed us. We just had to give him the shot.
I was exactly the same way. And so you've been in the fire service a long time. And so, like, I would say when I came in '03, I was one of the first generations of guys to ask why.
Yeah.
And that was very different for the guys that I was dealing with at the time, because when they came through, it was just, you just did what you were told, and that's how you did it. And so I am a millennial. I know it sucks or whatever, but it is what it is. So, so I would ask why, why do we do this? Why are we doing that? Why this way? Why that way? And a lot of guys took offense to that, as if I was questioning their knowledge, when I was just trying to more figure it out for myself. And that's one of the biggest things. And when I teach is, I really want to answer that question, why?
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of people, a lot of younger people who don't have the mechanical aptitude, they've never been in the trades or anything like that. If you actually answer that why for them, they'll have a better understanding and hopefully keep that knowledge with them forever.
Yeah. I mean, I firmly believe that we have to work harder and a little bit different than how we used to keep educating and moving forward. But there's nothing wrong with that, because through change and through decades of change throughout the fire service, people are picking up people are doing less of certain things and more of other things. And so, as technology advances, we're getting away from spark plugs and mix, right? 2-cycle, right? So like, why would a 24-year-old kid know any of that when he never had to before? But why do we vilify him for that? Why don't, we have to work harder to educate him and explain to him how an internal combustion engine works, or how to change, or how to take it apart and disassemble to reassemble after cleaning. Like, these are things that we now have to teach that we didn't have to teach before. But why is that any worse than anything else we have to teach? That I don't understand.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And if you look at it from the flip of the coin, right? Like, today, the penny pushers want Excel spreadsheets and PowerPoints
100%.
to get get your grants or this or that or whatever. And that's where those guys will shine. You know what I mean? If you put them in those positions to go, hey, set me up this PowerPoint or whatever, and they can build that for you. And it is funny because coming into the fire service at 18, I didn't work in the trades. I worked in a bait and tackle store and a farm or a tractor shop sweeping the floor. But so everything I learned on the job.
Yeah.
And so I do fire behavior for my department, and I was building the dollhouse for the burn. Well, ours is 4 foot by 4 foot by 7 foot. It's a condominium essentially. and so we were building it at the firehouse the other day, and I had all my tools there. And again, I didn't learn any of this stuff except for on the job. And we had some younger guys, and I go, hey man, you ever use a skill saw? Nope. I said, get over here.
Yeah.
Use this jigsaw, use a skill saw. Here's a drill. Here's a nail gun, and we're going through this thing. And this young guy had never used any of this stuff. And it just, there was so much learning potential. And instead of going, get out of the way, kid, I got to get this done. Like, taking that time to let him just go through it, you know what I mean? And figure it out.
That's where you get your most impact, right? Is like a moment like that. That's probably one of the biggest moments that kid has had in a long time on the apron floor of the firehouse or wherever it was being done, right? It's like, whoa, like, these are things that, like, I know of, I've seen, haven't had the opportunity to do, but now I do. And it's somebody that is allowing me to learn, because it's the only way we're going to teach our people, is giving them opportunity. If we limit their opportunities, they're never going to learn.
No, I mean, absolutely. And that's like, there's so many things that as a guy who's been on the job for a minute, we take for granted, that we don't even remember that it was an actual skill to do those things. So, we'll talk about VES training, and it's like, hey man, swing this, we call it a Z hook. I know you guys call it a New York hook.
Right.
So swing this hook on the ladder and break this window. That's a skill. Swinging a hook while hanging on to a ladder is a skill. And if you haven't practiced that skill, guys have it in their mind, like, well, I'm just going to climb up this ladder and swing this hook, and this window's going to shatter. And it doesn't go that way.
Mm-hmm.
And then the whole operation is kind of put in behind, because now you're trying to figure out how the hell to get this done. And so there's all these little intangible skills that we just take for granted, that you have to show these people. You have to actually put them in that position and go, hey man, lock your leg in this way, not like the full lock-in method. All right, now see how you can just, rip a hook and knock the shit out of this window. And so all those things that I think people just look at as like, well, you just do it. Well, no, that's an actual skill, and there's a way to do it. And being able to break it down and explain it will make everybody, in the firehouse and in the fire department, a better firefighter.
Yeah. I mean, it takes time and patience. And I think that's with anything, though. And I think what we lack more of now than ever is patience. And I think that is to a detriment of what we're doing in the fire service, is the lack of patience that we have for one another, for the public, for our administrators, for the chiefs, right? I just think it's one of those things that, nobody wants to wait for an answer, or nobody wants to see how something's going to turn out. They want to know now. They lack patience.
It's funny because I was talking to some younger guys the other day about when I first made the truck, and I was telling them, my senior fireman, he never did housework, and he never did any medical reports. I did them all. And they were kind of like, that's BS, that this guy's got some more time, so he doesn't think he has to do that. And I go, whoa. I didn't say he didn't think he wanted to do it. I wouldn't let him do it because every day after lunch for the first year we were together on the truck, he would take me out in the app bay and he would pull a tool out and he would break it down piece by piece. And he didn't have to do that.
Right.
That's just something that he took out of his own time to do that for me, to make me better. And in respect and showing him that I appreciated that, I took care of those other little BS things, that again, he didn't feel he was too good to do, but I just wanted to do those for him to show him that I appreciated what he did. Where I think some guys think, well, he's got to get up and do that. No, that's not the case. If that person's out there giving you their time, giving you their knowledge, you know what I mean? Like that's something that they want to do. That's not required of anybody. Really.
And the fact that you recognize that, because I think part of the problem is like, I'm trying to find the right words for this. And I spoke about this actually earlier today, where people recognize the efforts of others and appreciate it. I think too often now we just expect things. There's this level of entitlement, and I don't mean entitlement like everybody deserves everything, like not that entitlement, but entitlement like just that it should be expected. And, you want everything done for you. And that guy should be teaching me this and should be teaching me that. But nobody offers the return of saying like, well, I'm going to pick up this guy's medical reports so he doesn't have to do them, but show him appreciation and respect. I think that's what's lacking. And I don't know how to coin that or figure that out. But that is I almost think like that's an inherent trait that you either have or you don't, where you recognize the efforts of others and know how to appreciate it and then pay it back in a way that represents a symbol of appreciation for what they're doing for you. I think, like, I just watch the expectation that people have for one another, and I go, we don't have to do that for you. Like, we chose to do that, right? You know what I'm saying?
I think that it's like anything else in the fire service. It's passed down from one generation to the next. And some of the things that, I see going on is that there's a lot of people who want to be friends. I want to be friends with these guys. And like, my thing is like, my job is super young right now. And, with me only being 8 years here, some of the firehouses I walk into, I'm the senior firefighter in the station. And when, it's not that I don't want to be friends with these guys. It's just that I want to toe the line. Right. Like, because I want them to tote the line when they're in my position. And I want to continue the traditions and the culture of this organization, because culture and tradition is all we have.
Yes.
So it's like guys, are like, oh man, you're busting this guy's chops and da, da, da. It's like, yeah, because I'm trying to teach him something. And then when he gets it, I'll give him praise. You know what I mean? Like I'll be excited for him.
I get it.
But I'm not going to sit there and just be like, it's okay, buddy. Don't worry about it. Like better luck next time. Like, because that's essentially accepting mediocrity. And I just don't believe that.
Well,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, I speak about this a lot. I'm actually going to speak about this Friday night at a conference that I'm speaking at. And poor leadership leads to entitlement. Because what happens is with poor leadership is if we're not keeping our people on track and on point and being honest in their job reviews or task reviews, and we're not holding them accountable, it will build up over time. And that individual thinks that they're doing an okay job because we're not reprimanding or correcting them along the way. And then one day it bubbles over and you go, man, you're out of line. You've been doing this for so long and blah, blah, blah. And it finally boils over and the manager boils over on the firefighter, and the firefighter looks at him and goes, how come you've never said anything to me?
Yep.
Right? So poor leadership leads to entitlement because people become entitled because they don't know that they're not supposed to be. If everything is sunshine and rainbows and every boss wants to be every firefighter's friend, then they can't walk that line when they need to be a boss, and they're creating a false sense of security and achievement for the firefighter, and that's going to lead to significant problems down the road. I think it's happening all over.
Yeah, well, and the other thing too is like the delivery, because like there are people out there who are scared to have adult conversations with people for fear of reprimand.
Right.
And so I've had many of adult conversations with many of junior firefighters in that bay. And one thing I'll tell you about those conversations is I don't swear at them.
Yeah.
I don't belittle them.
Right.
I just explain to them like, listen, man, you're not doing the right things here. You're doing X, Y, and Z, and that's not good. And let me show you how we can get you to success. We can make you be more successful. And I always tell guys, like, what's this guy going to do? What's he going to complain to the chief? Hey, Steve said that he wanted to see me do better and I was making mistakes and that, he wanted to help me fix them. The chief's going to go, you're telling on a guy that's helping you get better. Like,
Exactly.
like it's not going to go anywhere. But if you walk out there and you rip him upside and down the other, right, then yeah, you're probably going to get, a little bit of trouble. So it's all in the delivery of how you tell these people. But again, it has to be said. Like, here's a good example. I had a probie who was he was up early making the coffee and doing the thing, and we had got an early run. So I came walking by him, and he's watching his phone at the table, and he's watching a TV show. And I'm like, that's like unbelievable to me. So I kind of turned back around and I look back and I kind of confirm. I'm like, yeah, this guy's watching a TV show on his phone right now at the table. And so I walk away and have a cup of coffee. I come back and hey, buddy, come out here and talk to me real quick. And so I go, hey man, you watching a training video or something? And no, what are you watching? And he tells me what he's watching, and I go, all right, well, do you think that's like appropriate? And he kind of tries to dance around it. Well, I'm normally the only person up right now, and it's my, I just try to have a little my time and da. And I just explained to him, like, hey man, essentially what you're doing is you're telling every guy in this firehouse that went through probation that didn't do what you just did, that everything we did was for nothing. Like, we could have just sat there and been on our phone and not cared. I just tried to explain to him, like, you have to live up to the standards that everybody before us has set. And he very much understood that. And obviously he never got on his phone at the firehouse again, and everything was good. But again, I could have just, you know what, this kid's a zero and I don't even care. He's going to be out of here in a couple months anyways. He's going to be somebody else's problem, and let it go. And to him, that's now an acceptable behavior because he saw everybody walk by him and see him doing it, and nobody said anything to him.
Yeah.
And so as long as you address the point and you do it in a professional manner, but you still have to address the point, I think, you can keep things moving in the right direction.
Yeah, and I think it's important to be protective of what's been laid before you, and I think that is something that we need to do a better job at, is that I think we're losing touch with that foundation that was built before us, and I think departments are losing track of their culture and tradition, and that we allow simple little things like that to snowball, because if the senior guy walks past the junior guy doing that, and it's not acceptable behavior to the ones that came before, and yet we just kind of turn a blind eye to it and walk past it, you've now green-lighted that behavior to be there in perpetuity, and it will erode the foundation
forever.
for what. Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely.
That's
yes. So,
go ahead.
So I mean, it's just, I mean, we've kind of hit a lot of topics, but I mean, that's the thing in my organization. I think we do really live on our culture and our traditions because we take a lot of pride in being, one, the state capitol fire department, and two, the oldest fire department. And so, I think that we do a good job, better than most, of really kind of toting that line and saying, like, this is where we're going to stand. And if you want to be on this side of the line, we would love to have you. We're more than happy to help you get there and do whatever it takes. But if you're not willing to make that commitment to be the firefighter we expected you to be, then this probably just isn't the organization for you, and you should go somewhere else and be successful there.
Who wants to be on a losing team? No, right? I mean, I played high school sports, college sports. Like, nobody wants to be on a losing team, right?
No.
And so to be on a winning team, it takes work, it takes discipline. And so, it's the protection of that foundation from which you were built will allow you to succeed in perpetuity. And I think that's the most important thing here. And to be in a department and to recognize the importance of the foundation before you got there, Steve, and now you're doing your part in protecting it. We need everybody on the front line to do that, to protect the institution for which we work. It's super important.
Absolutely. And I mean, like I said, I got to come up behind some great mentors, guys that, wrote articles in fire engineering and traveled the country and taught. And like I said, I just was fortunate to come up under some of these guys and see it. And the other side is having a boss and an admin that backs that culture and believes in that and truly, wants to uphold that culture, and so that kind of has set us up for success in the long run. Now, don't get me wrong, we have our problems like everybody
Sure.
else, but we just we believe in these things, and we stick to them. And the other thing is, I think if you're seeing a fair amount of fire duty, you want to know that people are going to be in position. They're going to do the right thing. They're going to make the right choices. And all that goes back to the firehouse life. And, making sure that junior guy is up early, making the coffee, putting the flag up, getting the paper, emptying the dishwasher, like all those minute things, add up to doing bigger things and being in position and making the hole, making the cut, feeding the hose, all those things, those little minute things on the fire ground that can make a difference. If they can't do it at the firehouse, they won't do it on the fire ground either. So,
well, and with that, my man, that is a very strong way to end this episode because it matters. It all matters, man. That was great, man. Really. I love it. I love talking about in position. I love how the little things affect the fire ground, how we operate and carry ourselves within the firehouse affects the outcome in our output on the fire ground, man. And it's directly relatable. I couldn't agree with you more. That's fantastic.
Absolutely.
Steve, man, thank you so much tonight. It's been an hour already. It goes quick.
Yeah.
But, man, I'll tell you, man, a lot of fun talking about shop tonight, man. I appreciate you joining me.
Hey, thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, of course, man. And you're always welcome back. Anybody that's on the show has an open invite to come back anytime they have something they want to chat about, or if you got another topic you want to hit on, you're always welcome back. But I look forward to seeing you again. I don't know what the future holds for you coming back this way anytime soon.
Westchester.
Oh, you are?
The 24th, 25th, and then FDIC in April. So,
oh, good. Well, I'll definitely.
For all you listeners out there, go to Westchester.
Westchester, PA, Eckert Fire Tactics is doing an event in March, right? It's March?
Yeah, March 24th, 25th, taking it to the streets.
Yeah, and it's if you haven't seen the program, you definitely get your worth out of it. It's certainly a program that boosts confidence in street smart firefighting for sure. So, Steve McClain, Sacramento, California. Thank you, brother, for joining me. Appreciate you.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Good. Stay right here, and I'm going to sign off the podcast. I'll come right back to you, buddy.
Okay.
Everyone, thanks for tuning in for another episode of the National Fire Radio podcast. I can't even speak. It's been a long day. Steve McClain, Sacramento, California, 8 years in Sacramento, hard-hitting fireman, moonlights with Eckert Fire Tactics, promoting the job and moving the job forward. So do me a favor. There was a lot of great topics talked about tonight, so take it back to your firehouse and talk about it, because when we talk about the job, we are making the job better. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you at the next one. Jeremy, National Fire Radio. National Fire Radio.